Hello and welcome to your Suffrage and Abolition review. All of the answers to your study guide can be found in this video. Please follow along with your study guide in hand and go ahead and pause it as you need to in order to write down your answers. Then after watching the video, maybe go and review your video again with your answers in front of you without having to stop it, and then maybe go have somebody quiz you so that you can thoroughly study this information and pass your test. Another good thing to do is to maybe go back and watch the other two videos that are about this unit. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to show you is actually not going to be on your study guide. This is the political cartoon of Susan B. Anthony. What she's doing here is chasing down Grover Cleveland, and he was one of the presidents during the 72 years that suffrage went on. And she's trying to convince him, through apparently beating him with her umbrella, that women's right to vote is important. And so you might see this on your test and you'll know what this is about, basically. So I wanted to show you that real quick before we got started with your study guide. So onward to your study guide. All right, this question, number 1, asks you to what is the definition of suffrage? And the answer is right here on your screen: the right to vote in a political election. And so the women's suffrage movement was the women's right to vote movement. Now your next question asks, what was the main point of the women's suffrage movement? Because we know that it wasn't only about votes. So the other issues are, of course, the women's right to vote, the women's right to an education, women's rights to own land or business, and women's right to sign a contract. And of course, we listed several social issues and restrictions that women were trying to overcome as well. Now, question number 3 asks you to name the 3 women in the suffrage movement. So over the next couple of slides, we'll be answering the next couple of questions. So one of those women is Susan B. Anthony, and she was an advocate for the suffrage movement. An advocate is the word that you need to associate with Susan B. Anthony. She wanted women to have the right to vote and equality. Isabel Sojourner Truth is another woman who is involved in the suffrage movement. She was a former slave who stood up for the women's rights movement and equality for all people. And then we have Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She was a leader, and leader is the word that you need to associate with her. She was a leader in the women's suffrage movement. She wanted women to have the rights that she felt they should have. All right. The next question gives you this quote: "It was we, the people, not we the white male citizens, nor yet we the male citizens, but we the whole people who formed the Union." And the question is, what was this person who was saying this fighting for? Well, this person was Susan B. Anthony, and she was fighting for a constitutional amendment that would grant women the right to vote. Now we're going to switch gears to the abolitionist movement. And the first thing that we're going to have on the abolitionist movement side of things is asking, what newspaper did William Lloyd Garrison run? And the name of his newspaper was The Liberator. And you can see here a picture of that. The next question is, what was the Underground Railroad? Now, the Underground Railroad, remember, was a secret system that was used to free slaves from the South to the North and even into Canada. And the picture here is the Underground Railroad Memorial in Detroit, Michigan. And it stands there, and the person that's pointing is actually pointing across the Great Lakes to Canada and what would mean freedom, complete freedom for these slaves. And it's just there to help people remember the connection between Canada and the United States during this time, because they were part of the freedom of our slaves at this point. Now the next question is, what are the main points of the abolitionist movement? And here they are. Slavery is against the idea of democracy. Slavery is inhumane. Slavery is not moral. And all slaves should be freed immediately. Those are the main 4 points of our abolitionist movement. And even though it wasn't a real organized movement, we need to remember that they all generally had these 4 things in mind as they were speaking and acting to free slaves. The next one gives you a quote. It says, "Slavery violates the principles of democracy." And this statement would be made by someone standing up for what? And the answer is the abolition of slavery. They would be part of the abolitionist movement, or the doing away with slavery. The next few questions, again, are about the main people that we studied as part of the abolitionist movement. And so these few slides will cover the next few questions. Now, we just spoke about William Lloyd Garrison, but here he is again. William Lloyd Garrison owned the anti-slavery newspaper called The Liberator, and he was a strong supporter of freedom for all slaves. Next, we have Frederick Douglass. He was the escaped slave who told his story as an abolitionist, and he also became the owner of the abolitionist newspaper called The North Star. And remember that his story made a big difference in how people viewed slavery in the South, because he was able to tell them what happened to him, and so they were able to see what it was like firsthand, or hear what it was like. And then finally we have Harriet Tubman. I found this picture so that you guys could see that she really did sort of smile sometimes. She was the conductor on the Underground Railroad, and she escaped slavery herself, and she went back and freed hundreds of slaves. She was an amazing and strong woman who overcame a lot of things in her personal life and dedicated herself to helping other people, which is pretty amazing. All right. Please study for your test tomorrow. And I say tomorrow, but if you're watching this on a Tuesday night, then your test is going to be Wednesday. The test has only 20 questions. If you study, you're going to find it easy. Each test question is worth 5 points, which means if you only miss a few, your grade is going to go really, really far down very quickly. So if you have any questions, then I will definitely give you a chance to ask those before our test tomorrow. But between now and then, please study, and I guess I will see you tomorrow. I hope y'all have a great evening. Bye.